Yes, hello, I'm Larry Coleman. I did 20 years, 4 months and 3 weeks as chaplain at Dauphin County Prison after 20 years of parish ministry, and I've been spending the last 7 years working with reentry, utilizing the resources of my successful ex-offenders.
And how you start prison ministry?
How did I start with prison ministry?
Yes.
Well, I heard a jail chaplain speak one day when I was in college, and he touched me in an unexpected place. I couldn't really understand it at the time, but I identified with the loneliness of the inmates that he talked about ministering to, and also identified with their facing their own brokenness. And my thought was, that's where it's really at. One day I'll be spending a lot of time behind bars. At that point, I was not ready to go behind bars, and I knew it. I knew they would manipulate me to death. So it just took a long time to grow on me. I met my wife in seminary, and she helped me get into prisons because her commitment was to chaplaincy. And so gradually and incrementally, I found out I could keep my feet in prison and handle the manipulation and learn how to say no. And it was quite a run. I really loved the ministry in the prison.
And can you talk a little about the ex-offender mentoring support group?
We started the ex-offender mentoring support group not knowing exactly how this was going to look. I had a symposium. It's been 6 years ago now, literally. Went over to Cross Points United Methodist Church and had about 120 people there who were in the system, who were churches, parole officers, everybody we could get to talk about what mentoring would look like of the ex-offender, because there's a good evidence-based statistics, I will say, that mentoring helps ex-offenders succeed. And so I wanted to see what that looked like in our community and make it happen. I'd wanted to have this happen while I was chaplain of prison. Never had time to get out of the prison and start it. So in the way that I wanted to see it go. We did start a one-on-one while I was in prison, still going. But I wanted to use ex-offenders, and they wouldn't let me use ex-offenders while I was in prison. And so I had ex-offender at each breakout table. We had presentations from Washington, D.C., from Baltimore, from Lancaster, and after each session, what they were doing in their community. We had the ex-offender, the successful ex-offender, lead the discussion about how we could apply this in our community. 6 months later, the director of county parole came to me and said, I need to have ex-offenders talking to my parolees. I said, when can we start? Well, we ended up, he gave us the conference room at the county parole office, and we talked about how to start with 12 ex-offenders who were ready to work with us. And we now are entering our 6th year of doing a group mentoring process, utilizing successful ex-offenders as facilitators, support mentors who are not ex-offenders, and resources in the community to partner with the community to provide for successful reentry. It takes all of that partnering together, and parole partners with us. It takes the parole officer mandating you got to attend at least one group to get them there. I don't need to do another group. I did all those in prison. Now you got to put it into practice. What you learned in prison is good, but now you got to put it in practice. This is the advanced course, and they get it when they come to the ex-offenders group, because they will listen to an ex-offender. They won't listen to you and I. Jan, until they've been introduced to us by an ex-offender, and then, see, we give each other credibility. That's what the exciting part of it is. The ex-offender gives us credibility, excuse me, and we give them credibility. Often, with the system, you're in the ex-offender. What do you mean? You're just an ex-offender like I am, even though that's who they'll listen to. The credibility is not as strong. Excuse me for the tickle in my throat, but we'll get there. What's the next question?
Why do you think this type of programs are important? What difference they make?
I have lots of anecdotal evidence that they make all the difference in the world. Like the one fellow that came into a mentoring group, and he said at the beginning, I need to tell you, this is the last place I need to be tonight. I had to walk all the way across town to be here. Parole officer mandated me to be here. This is just a bunch of hooey. That may not have been the word to use. That's mine. At the end of the group, he raised his hand and said, I need to make an apology. I needed to be here tonight. I've been sitting in front of my television expecting somehow a job was going to happen. That night it was about jobs. Thank you for putting up with me, and I want to thank you for what you did for me tonight. That's the dramatic change that happens in one of these mentoring groups. Somebody for them to call. I don't know about you, but I've done some of my worst thinking when I did it by myself, when I was in a rock and hard place. But the minute I called somebody or asked somebody, suddenly my own creativity began to get back into play instead of, churning it over and over and over and then making a bad decision. That happens for them all the time because they're afraid to talk to somebody. So if they have somebody they know well enough and trust well enough that they'll give them a call, that can keep them from committing another crime or doing something dumb. It's going to set them back or put them back into prison. It's really, all of us who are out here in the community trying to make it, trying to pay less taxes, trying not to have our streets vandalized. This is going to be what makes our community safer, if we can have ex-offenders succeed. 82%, last I checked, of the persons in Dauphin County Prison had been there at least once before, most several times. Our problem is people who reoffend. Yeah, there's a few that offend for the first time. But you can stop the ones that offended once from reoffending. We're all going to be so much better off, and they are, and their families. And think of the ripple effect. Every success affects a kid, usually more than one kid, a spouse or a significant other, mother and father, a neighborhood. It's important that we help these people succeed.
So if it's something that you would like to tell to people to encourage them to be part of this program or to let them know what these programs are important for everybody.
Anybody can make a difference in somebody's life. Now you might say, well, I'm just a little old grandmother. What do I know about an ex-offender? I have an ex-offender that will tell you that it was my mother that brought me to my knees when she died. My sister told me, Mom died because of you. And I couldn't get over that. And when that little grandmother came over to prison and met with a Yoke Fellowship group and reached out and started nudging me, that's what got to me. And of course, before she ever started doing this, she would have said, me help somebody in prison? Me help this gangster that had never done anything in his life except shoot people and sell drugs and do what gangsters do? But she was the one that turned him around. So you never know. People change across the fulcrum of other people's lives. And it just happens to be where you and they happen to connect because of a life experience. So don't discount yourself that you could be a mentor. You surely can to someone.